Good afternoon and welcome to St. Mark's Preschool. I am Peggy Totten and I am founder of St. Mark's Preschool here on Marco Island in Southwest Florida. I am also the director and lead teacher of this school. So I'm going to start off with a quick story. About 3 years ago, I was being interviewed by a mother wanting to make sure that my school was the right place for her daughter. And as we sat on the playground, the mother asked me directly, "What do you do about bullies?" And my immediate response was, there's no such thing as a preschool bully. There are children who need to learn right from wrong, and there are children that need to learn love and acceptance and kindness, and that's what they learn here at St. Mark's Preschool. She did end up enrolling her daughter, and that leads me to my topic for today. The title of my TED Talk is There's No Such Thing as a Preschool Bully. How can we stop the labeling and start creating emotionally strong children? Now, this topic itself is a little bit provocative. It may upset some people, but at the same time, there may be others who are agreeing with me right now. Regardless of where you stand on this, I hope that you will lend me an ear and listen for just a little bit. What is bullying? So we're going to start off with the definitions. First of all, it is an act that is aggressive and its intent is harm. Now, that in itself can be a little subjective because what one person might consider bullying, another person considers as just aggressive play. So right there, it's a little tricky to even define. I have actually found that some of my students are still working on gross motor skills, and I've had some of my students being labeled as bullies by other parents simply because of their inability to control their bodies. And also, when they are preschool age, 5 and under, they are still learning right from wrong. So this can be a pretty tricky definition, especially when we're applying it to preschool children. Another part of this definition is that it is an act that is repeated over and over again. So that is pretty much key to bullying, but what we need to understand is 5-year-olds and under, 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds, if they're pre-kindergarten age or preschool age, they are still learning this right from wrong, and they need guidance in order to understand that they shouldn't be repeating the behaviors that they're doing. So that's where we fall in as preschool teachers. Another part of this is that it's done within the context of a power imbalance. And so we oftentimes label them bullies and victims. So the bully definitely has the upper hand in what we see. When we're looking at preschool age children, we have to understand that they're all on a power trip. They all have a very, very limited worldview, and they believe that they are the center of the universe. So that is very typical for that age group. And so that's why I feel we need to be very careful when we are labeling. So can preschool teachers be part of the solution? Most definitely. And I have found that we are probably the most important group in order to try and stop bullying. Do I believe that bullies exist? Yes. But I will stand by the fact that I don't believe that preschoolers can be bullies. If we as preschool teachers don't address this situation, then most definitely those children can progress into what we would label as bullies. So one of the most important things I have found is that we need to stop the labeling, and we need to try and prevent parents from labeling as well. When you are teaching your class, look at your children, and you have to understand that most of them have been here on earth for 5 years or less. 5 years here on earth. Now, I just turned 50 last month, so that means I have 45 additional years here on earth than these little children in front of me. We are expecting 5-year-olds and younger to be navigating social skills that many adults still do not have a handle on. Sometimes I don't have a handle on some of these skills we are expecting out of 5-year-olds. We have to be very careful to not attribute adult behavior to children's actions. oftentimes we want to assume that what a 4-year-old did, what a 3-year-old did, has the same sort of weight as what an adult might do if they did the same thing. We can't do that. Even some of our younger teachers who are maybe 20 years old and recently out of school, they still have been here on earth for 15 years longer than that child they are teaching. We have to be very careful not to establish patterns of bullies and victims in our preschool classroom. We immediately want to label the aggressor as a bully, as guilty, and we want to label the victim as helpless. And that can cause a lot of issues as the children grow if we start that labeling and we create these patterns, which we can do as teachers. We can have these children start to have extremely low self-esteem just by how we are labeling them, by how we are setting up a pattern. And I'm referring to both the bullies and the victims. We can cause that low self-esteem right within our classroom. We also need to be very careful when we allow parents to label children. One of the articles I read when researching for this TED Talk was all about what to do with preschool bullies. And it was a pretty hard article to read because the author kept writing as if this 4-year-old was intentionally harming her child. And I did some research into the author of the article to see what sort of educational background the author had. And I discovered that she wasn't in education. She had never taught a day in her life. She did not have any background on social emotional skills of children at the preschool age. She was simply a journalist and a parent and letting her emotions run high. So as I was reading that, I could almost imagine parents getting all fired up. Yeah, this one child is a bully to my kid. And I could see that happening. I've had that happen. And so we just need to be really careful when speaking with parents if there are incidences in our class to not allow those labels to come in. One of the number one things we need to remember to do in the classroom is to teach respect. Respect, respect, respect. Lisa Murphy, aka the ooey gooey lady, does a lot of presentations around the country. So I was able to be part of one of her presentations, and she asked us a question. We were all preschool teachers, and she said, "Do you like all of your students?" And of course, as preschool teachers, we all said, "Oh, of course, yes we do." And she said, "No, you don't. You don't like them all." She said, "You know which students I'm talking about. The ones who walk in the door and immediately you know it's going to be a tough day. And the child that when they do call in sick, you're actually a little bit relieved." We've all had those students, and that's okay. There are also those students that sometimes we just clash with. Our personalities clash. And what she did say is you may not like them all, but as a good teacher, you need to respect them all. You need to show that you respect them as human beings. And I find that to be very important as an educator. There's definitely going to be the children that challenge you and that you might not mesh with well, but what you have to have is respect for that child. We need to realize that these children are worthy of our time, they are worthy of our praise, and worthy of direct focus and attention. When a child comes to us, and I know we are burdened with having large numbers in classrooms and it can be tricky to have individual attention on some students, but we definitely have to remember we have to pull that time away, and when we do have that time with them, we need to make sure we are really focusing on those children. And those children will then learn that we are a safe place for them, and that is very, very important to do. Another thing we need to realize is that as preschool teachers, we need to build up people skills first. The most important thing for children that are preschool age is to develop strong social and emotional skills. They cannot learn their ABCs if we haven't allowed them to grow emotionally and socially. Their success in elementary school depends on that healthy socialization skills that we as preschool teachers build in them. So what defines success? Things like confidence. Is that child, what we might be wanting to label as the victim, are we helping that child gain confidence? Are we helping them gain independence as well? And this goes for all children, not just the ones that we sometimes label the bully or the victim. Are we giving them a sense of curiosity? Are we allowing them to feel motivated? Do we get them excited about what we're teaching them? And what about self-control? For those children that might be the aggressors that we might want to label as bullies, are we working with them on their self-control skills? Because that takes a while. Once again, let's go back to the fact that they've been on Earth for 5 years, and there are adults who still can't work on their self-control skills. So we need to remember that. Also, empathy. Are we working with our students to teach them empathy? Both across the board, whether we want to label them as the aggressive child, the passive child, or somewhere in between. Are we working on their empathy skills and communication skills, basic communication skills? I can guarantee you that any kindergarten teacher is going to say they want children with those skills way before children who know their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. That does not indicate success. If they're knowing all their sight words, if they're reading at a first grade level, that does not necessarily indicate success as they progress in elementary school. We really need to look at our behavior, misbehavior, punishment mentality. Sometimes we get into that old method of they're misbehaving, we have to punish them. And that does not work for behavior management. Traditional punishments might include yelling, raising your voice at a child. Guess what that's going to do? It's going to cause the child to yell back or the child to shut down. Another typical thing is timeouts. A lot of these children, both what we might label as victim and bully, if we're pulling them out into timeouts, we are isolating them further. They need to be able to work on their social skills. They need to know that they are still loved, and they need to learn what they did incorrectly so that we can teach them their social skills. By giving them a timeout, by going to make them sit in the director's office, isolated, and sometimes for lengths of time that is not appropriate for a 4 or 5-year-old, that causes more issues and can continue that bully victim pattern that we don't want. These traditional methods of punishment also causes the stress to skyrocket in these children, both the passive and the aggressive children, and everybody in between. Children start to see this as a threat and they act accordingly. And sometimes that could be what they are doing, the aggressive behavior that they are doing, is that they are simply acting out from stress. So as preschool teachers, we need to really work on problem-solving skills. We need to focus on teaching patience and consistency to our children, but we need to also do that. As a pre-K teacher, I often tell my teachers, we have to be the best actors out there. We are coming from home with all of our own issues, but when we step in that door, we need to let all of our problems go by the wayside, and we need to suddenly become the best actors out there. These children might be trying your patience, but you need to act as if they are not doing that. They might be causing you to reach the end of your level of patience, but you need to turn it around and start acting like that's not the case. So you need to be patient and consistent. You need to show these children how to act, how to speak, and you need to help facilitate dialogue between 2 children, or 3, or however many the aggressive behaviors might be done to. So we really need to focus on that. We have to facilitate the dialogue, especially in the beginning of a school year. Oftentimes teachers will say, use your words, Johnny. If somebody's upset because Jack won't get off the swing and Johnny wants to go on, what do we often say? We say, Johnny, go use your words. Go talk to him. The problem is these children once again, are 5 or younger, and they don't know what words you want them to use. If you were that age, you might go up and start screaming at the child because those are the words you know. So in the very beginning of a school year, what we will do is we will go and we will help facilitate the dialogue between children. We might say, hey Jack, are you gonna be done on the swing soon? Because Johnny is really wanting a turn. Jack might say, nope, I'm not getting off. And that's okay. We also need to respect that Jack is on the swings and he's not wanting to get off. So then we have to help Johnny communicate properly. Johnny shouldn't go and push Jack off the swings. Johnny shouldn't start screaming, but maybe as a teacher, you can help them find those words you want them to use. When the year progresses, then slowly you might be able to start having them be more independent and use the words they already have in their head to then communicate. When we are communicating with children who are being aggressive, we need to get on the child's level. We need to ensure them that they are still loved, that they are still respected. And sometimes it's as simple as manipulating the environment rather than the child. Sometimes we set our classrooms up for failure. You might look at what kind of toys are in the classroom or what you have done and how you've seated children, and maybe you simply need to manipulate the environment to make it a better situation. Guidance is really the name of the game in preschool when working with children who are aggressive and passive. And once again, everybody in between. We need to make sure our classroom setting is welcoming and encouraging to all children. And we have to make sure that we are teaching these children to learn from their mistakes. Once again, don't assume that their behaviors are something that an adult would do. We can't compare the two. And so we need to realize they need to learn from their mistakes. And we as preschool teachers need to teach them to learn from their mistakes. We need to help these children build relationships. Some of them come from homes where there is no relationship, not even necessarily between parent and child, between siblings and child. So within the confines of the class, we can teach them how to build relationships. We need to guide them to behave better, but what we need to understand is they don't know what better is yet. We need to teach them what behaving better is. Don't assume that they know. We also need to teach the children that might be a little more passive and a little more prone to being bullied in a typical classroom, an older classroom. These passive children need to learn that it's okay to say, that's not nice. I don't like when you say that. Please don't do that. And then walk away. We can teach children to say that. We do that in the very beginning when there's conflict between children. We go with the children and we help them find the words and say, please don't do that again. That wasn't nice and I don't like it. And they learn how to say it calmly and with patience. And so hopefully the aggressor will understand that. Over time, they do. As the year progresses, within half of the year, maybe they just need a little more guidance, but by the end of the year, I would say by February, every single one of my students works at communicating very well. And we do not have those instances where they need the assistance of teachers. Every now and again they do, and of course we'll step in, but by that time, being under your care and your teaching, hopefully they will be learning those skills. We need to understand that conventional discipline is very punishing and it's isolating. Children with those stress levels, stress is caused by isolation, stress is caused by punishment. Children with those stress levels, they can't learn. They cannot learn their ABCs, their 1, 2, 3s. They cannot learn how to socialize properly. So we need to create an environment that allows them to learn. We need to really focus on not labeling children. We have to stop that. Children are prone to being more aggressive or more passive or somewhere in between. But we need to work on teaching them the social emotional skills that will allow them to nurture relationships. We need to start nurturing relationships, and we need to be nurturing in the classroom. It's very hard work because we have to be on top of things at all times. We have to be watching every interaction with children. It's very hard, it's very exhausting, but it's what we signed up for. And we need to keep going every day, every minute of every day. Continue to work on your acting skills, because what you bring into the classroom is what the students feel. So you need to be the best actor out there so that these children feel that they are always loved, that it is always a loving, consistent, patient environment, even when internally you don't feel that way. But that's what you have to project. Most importantly, our children need to know that you are their safe space, and that you are there to guide them and to love them, and most importantly, respect them. Thank you so much for attending our TED Talk today, and I hope you enjoyed this and you go into your upcoming school year looking a little closer at relationships among children, and to really work on not labeling our children as bullies or victims. Thank you, and have a great day.